Hello everybody, welcome back. I have come to finish the Resident Evil HD remake of Resident Evil 1. This is a remake of the PlayStation 1 original Resident Evil from 1996. Now, I never played the original PlayStation 1 one, so this was supposed to have all of the complete up-to-date graphics, different kind of layout. It kind of, you're able to play with the tank controls, which was a big part of the Resident Evil gameplay back then. I'd like to give you some oversight on this game and what it's like being a modern Resident Evil fan, like being into the new Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake, the Resident Evil 4 remake coming out, being a big enjoyer of Resident Evil Village, that's number 8, Resident Evil 7, these first-person view ones, and trying to take a good look back at what is seemingly almost 20 years ago on a franchise that just began. Now, this remake was made in 2014, and I only played through the HD remake so far. I have not played through the Zero remake, but I would like to say that at the very beginning, when I decided to go play this game, I looked in my local marketplace and found that somebody was selling both strategy guides to the remake and Zero. Now, these strategy guides are meant for the GameCube because the games originally came out on the GameCube, these remakes, but now that they're bundled together, they were released on the PlayStation 4. I did play it on my PlayStation 5, and it seemed crisp. It ran quite well, except for a few things that I'm going to get into much later. But I'd like to go back and really dive into the game. So right off the hop, you're allowed to pick out of two people, Chris and Jill. And for a game that had just started, I think it's pretty bold that they made two characters and tried to mix two mainline people playing at the same time. Because you're playing in the same mansion at the same time. It just depends who you're playing with and the areas that they get to go to and the weapons they encounter and the people that they encounter. But it's a pretty bold move to allow you to decide one or the other. It's a lot to involve into a new IP franchise, right? And especially with how much they put into the game, where there's not just the mansion that you're going into. You're also going to find out that there's areas beneath. There's a laboratory. You're going to find out there's some kind of shark bay. You find out that there's a cabin. By the way, the game's almost 20 years old. We're not hitting spoilers here. If you haven't played it by now, like I haven't, I don't think you're really going to... You should get into it, but there's a lot of information out there already on it. The gameplay, though, is quite interesting. If you do play all of the other Resident Evil games that are newer, this one's going to throw you through a big curve. This one is hard. This game is hard in a different way. This isn't your typical run and gunner. This is a very tactical, where am I in the room and where are the enemies in the room? You have to stand and shoot. You can't run and gun. You're not able to see around the corner either. They use these fixed camera angles to only allow so much of the vision of the room. Now, I've got to say, for it to be the original survival horror type game, I think it's done right. If this was back in 1996, which I would have only been 6 years old at the time, so I didn't crack into it, I didn't get a PlayStation 1, I think this would have been very difficult for me to play. I think anybody under the age of 10, it would have been really hard to play. But it did get the M rating, I'm pretty sure, for the blood and the violence that came in the game. So if I was a teenager when it was 1996, that probably would have been... It probably would have been the pinnacle of this zombie horror type game. It would have made you really be scared, because you can only visualize so much. It's not like Doom. It's not like all these other ones where you're just running and gunning and taking out the monsters. The fear factor and the actual threat of death of your character is there, and I think that's a big part of survival horror. But another part that adds into the mix here is when you have the limited inventory. Jill has 8 slots and Chris has 6. Each of them have their own perks and things that they need to get along the way. There's a couple subtle differences between the gameplays. Chris can get these old keys, Jill comes with a lockpick, Chris has a built-in lighter already on hand, and so on and so forth. Jill is able to pick up like a couple of extra guns, like these assault shotguns and a grenade launcher. Really cool guns. But nonetheless, your first playthrough should be done with Jill on a probably easier mode, especially if you are not prepared for these type of survival horror games. And the biggest reason why is ammo consumption, inventory management, and finding out and learning what you need for the puzzles. There's a lot of times you're going to be backtracking to these item boxes to regather materials that you had to bring them back and use them in current puzzles, or bringing extra ammunition because you think you're going to go up against a boss fight. Now I think there's only 5 or 6 bosses in the whole game. I'd say about 3 of them are memorable. The other ones you're kind of just like, they're just kind of standing in the way. Now I've heard in this game is when they came with the Crimson Heads. So the reason that there's a lighter in the game is there's also kerosene, which you can fill up at these like fuel containers, and you're able to burn the bodies of these zombies after you kill them. And you would think, why do you need to burn a zombie after you kill it? It's because if you leave it dormant for long enough, it comes back as a Crimson Head. These Crimson Heads have these long, sharp talons, do extra damage, are fast, and they take more bullets. They have more health, so if you down them before, these zombies before, by 5 or 6 rounds, this is going to take another 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 more rounds to put another zombie that you've already shot down into the ground. They stay dead once they've been killed again as a Crimson Head, but nonetheless. The story here is good enough. You guys are all in the mansion. You guys are a secondary team going go investigate a mansion where the first set of soldiers, or whoever these people are, these operatives, have already gone missing, and to find out that the mansion is full of zombies. And then you guys go to uncover what's exactly going on. The cast of characters here are interesting and kind of laughable. It's got some obvious funny quirks and lines inside the game. The voice acting is moderate. I think we all know that. And the gameplay itself, with the tank controls, the standing to shoot, standing to aim, is an interesting way to get used to, especially if you're used to the new age running and gunning. Because they did make the dual analog, right? With the PlayStation 1, like they had the dual analog, and it just wasn't introduced at the time to be able to do this. I have a few major gripes about this game, but a lot of it I really enjoyed. I'm going to get to the gripes at the very end. I'm going to make a separate little bit at the very end to go about it. All in all, I think it's worth playing through with both Jill and Chris one time. Do it on an easy mode and then go on normal. I think it's worth 2 playthroughs. I don't think it's worth trying to speed run it. I don't think it's worth trying to get all the achievements in it. I don't think it's worth going into hard mode. You're really sacrificing resources and the strengths of the game to replay it again. I think it's a game worth remembering it for its first couple of fresh encounters. Before you start memorizing everything, you're able to predict where monsters are, predict their actions. You're able to predict a lot of the things that are going to outcome. It'll take away a lot of that surprise. Now, first time comers to these type of survival horror games, this game's gonna be hard. Like, hard. Even on easy mode, it's gonna be hard to decipher the puzzles and figure it all out. I tried not to use the guidebook as much as possible. I'll be honest. I tried to go in with a fresh set of eyes and just play through the game. And it was great. There was a couple of times that I needed to use this. Only 4 or 5 times. There was a couple puzzles where I was just like, what exactly is the number to the code? What is this exactly? What is this referring to? And yeah, you might get stuck a couple of times. There's lots of information online. You don't need a physical guidebook like this. There's obviously walkthroughs by IGN, video walkthroughs by probably tons of people. That's why I'm not going to do one, because so many people have these video tutorials on how to do everything throughout the game. Nonetheless, I say it's worth a playthrough. I've been kind of playing on these horror type games, finishing The Quarry, finishing Callisto Protocol, now finishing the Resident Evil 1 remake, and now this Friday is the Dead Space remake coming out, and I might try to live stream it. But nonetheless, this Resident Evil remake, I really enjoyed it. I don't know if I'd be able to play it on the PlayStation 1. I think if it was for the up-to-date graphics and the gameplay that probably is in here, I don't think I could go so far back as being a modern Resident Evil player. And I don't want to take that as a knock to it, but there's probably people looking at it through rose-colored glasses saying that the 1996 one is perfection, when if you really went back and tried to play with it as a fresh set of eyes, even this game isn't perfect. I've heard all kinds of people saying that these are the best remake. This is the best remake ever made. I think the Resident Evil 2 remake is the best remake that there is. It is crisp, clear. The loading screens are not bad. It's fluid. The run and gun is amazing. The functionality is amazing. Again, I think this is a single playthrough. You play through once with Jill, and you play through once with Chris. You get all the way to the end. You get to the big bad guy with Wesker and the Tyrant. You maybe try to do a couple of different options about who dies and who lives to see what kind of endings you can get. All in all, Resident Evil here is clear that this was the beginning of something way bigger. That they put a lot of time and effort and a lot of fulfilling good energy and good ideas into this game. It is here that I don't think a lot of producers would hit with such a good title like this one right off the bat. And you can see how much love is put into the mansion and the puzzles. The franchise has grown so much, and there's been so much money and development in it, that I think this one, as much as this one was fun and great, you could replay some of the other ones. The Resident Evil 2 remake, Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil Village. You could play those over and over again and have such a blast with them. This one really slows it all down. And for that, I think I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. You're gonna see like the problems that I had with the game in a few seconds, but I'd recommend it. This collector's edition, Origins Collections, is probably in your area of $20 to $40, depending if you're getting it brand new, if you're getting it at like a deal from a GameStop or your local game store. And again, for how much money this is, it brings you a lot of joy. It's a lot of fun. Thank you very much. Alright everybody, so I'm going to take a moment to describe my least favorite part of this entire game, this entire remake, where they are supposed to make the new up-to-date improvements on the game to make this game not only a competitive game to its counterparts that were released at the time, but it's not so much the fighting or the close quarters. This is all fine. This all adds to the environment, right? The part that gripes me so hard about all of this, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to let Jill die. I'm not going to fight this zombie off. I'm going to try to wake back up here and let it come to life and kill Jill. And kill Jill. We're looking for... So we're going to start a timer here. I'm going to start a timer. So you have the death animation, and you are dead. Right here, they should say, continue, load file, and go from your last save. Continue. Would you like to go from your last file? Would you not like to continue? Look at this. There's a load screen to go back to the main screen. What was the last part doing? What was the last part processing? So then if I go into this game and hit load content again, I'm going to get it. Load successful. Perfect. Into another load byte. What is this? So from the death animation all the way to restarting, that is exactly 45 seconds. That sounds like a major gripe that I'm having with this game, but if you are dying constantly on either a hard difficulty or you are in the area with the sharks in the cabin and you don't have that security key, which is the big part that bothers me a lot about this game, was that part with the security key and you just kept dying to the sharks automatically. Like if you have an auto death scene and you are dying a bunch of times and do not know what to do, and you have a 45-second split onto retrying from the last save, when you die and they do not even offer you continue, I think that's a major miss on this game, that you have to go all the way back. And I'm playing on a PlayStation 5. I don't know what those two other loading parts are even for. I don't know, maybe I'm really nitpicking here, but for something that's supposed to have all these updates and that's supposed to be the greatest, the apparent greatest remake ever made for a Resident Evil game, that one kind of bites. Right there, 45 seconds reload time from a death. And for a game that is not heavy for the hardware to run, there's a load section between each rooms. Every single door panel here has a loading section to go through, which is not a big deal. What I'm saying though is the game is not intensive for at least a PlayStation 5 to run. I think the life improvements there really flopped, and it was a big miss. Alright everybody, this is the second part that I have the biggest gripe with about this game. And it's literally right here. It's this courtyard residence. And the biggest problem that I had with it was this control room key. This thing right here. For when you're playing as Jill, getting down into the control room here, where it says that you need the control room key. Not a big deal, right? Now, the ridiculous part with all this is that there is no manner of skill. There is no manner that is hard here. This is just a ridiculous back and forth part that has no enemies to involve you but waste your time. This entire area does nothing but waste time. How the sharks are even here makes zero sense. I got caught here so many times getting killed by these sharks because this room that is apparently a bathroom and this room here that has the key to get into here can be so missed because of the viewpoint of the game, that these two rooms, this little slit and this little slit, you'd miss it. You could miss it tons of times just by the way that it's maced, like by the way that the camera angle is. So all that you need to do is come in, go over, go down, up, over, grab the key, and then you have to backtrack. There's no enemies here. Get in here, grab the control key, come on back, go downstairs, go over here, push some boxes, come on through, and then go in the control room and zap the sharks. Come down to the very bottom, come get your gallery key, come back up. You'll be in here, come over, go through here, and then again, you come up here, get the spray, come down, come back out, come up here, and then come back, come grab your key, and do it again. This whole area is this: go over here, come on back. Go over here, come on back. Go over here, come on back. And then you fight the boss. The repetitiveness of going back and forth in such a small area with such a little amount of enemies, encounters, or other puzzles to fill the void really bothered me, because it was just this back from one room to another to get another thing. Now the mansion is amazing and it has so much going on, but this courtyard residence cabin thing just felt like the biggest waste of time. It's small enough that they could have done more with it. Like they could have done something else with it, but there is just a definitive go here, backtrack, go here, backtrack, go here, backtrack, and then you're there. I don't know. Maybe again, my experience is different to other people, but this part was the second part that bothered me the most. Was just this, grab this. No, it was grab this, go back. Grab this, go back. Grab this, go back. And it's not that it has, everything else has another use. All these things had one use and then it was gone. Where in every other part of the game, most of the main key items have a secondary use. Not in here. Run here, run back, one use. Run here, run back, one use. Run here, run back, one use. I don't know. Waste of time.